Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ask 360, where we are answering all your fitness and rehabilitation questions. I've got a question today from Tom, and Tom asks, is it safer to run on softer surfaces? So this is a fantastic question, Tom. Of course it is. If you're running on a softer surface, less impact. Less impact on the body, less risk of injury. The problem is whenever our bodies come in contact with an external surface, that external surface provides a counteractive force against the force that we're putting into it. So if we're running and our muscles are producing force into the ground then produces a certain amount of force back. And with a harder surface, it will sort of match our forces more evenly. Whereas with a softer surface, a lot of that force will actually dissipate. And because of this, our muscles are having to work a lot harder. And so there's more stress on the muscles and other soft tissues such as the tendons. And I think everyone who's run on sand will note that it's a lot harder. It's just, it's metabolically more demanding because the muscles are having to do more work. And we do know from limited research in this space, but from a review by Willie et al. In 2019, that running on a softer surface is associated with a higher risk of Achilles tendinopathy, which is a soft tissue injury. However, there is limited research in this space, and it is quite difficult to measure because we typically measure the force that's transmitted in the ground through force plates, which is done in a laboratory, but it's very difficult to replicate this out on a softer surface on grass or sand or something like that. So we're really not sure exactly how much force is dissipated. We're just sort of, we think about these things mechanistically. So potentially, if you are rehabilitating a soft tissue injury, or if you're prone to soft tissue injuries, then running on a harder surface may actually be better because you get less of that force dissipation. If you're rehabilitating a bony injury, such as a stress fracture in the foot or a bony type of shin splint, for example, then in that case, a softer surface might be better because the softer surface does provide less impact. So when you hit the ground, because it is softer, there's not as much stress on the bone. However, one thing to take into account is that we also get stress on the bone by muscle contraction. So theoretically, the more a muscle contracts, which as we've discussed earlier, is associated with softer surfaces, that may actually indirectly put more stress on the bone. The other thing that we need to consider is that when we're running on softer surfaces, we're usually running slower. So if you take a runner and just take them straight from a harder surface to a softer surface and let them run at a self-selected speed, they will usually run slower because it is more metabolically demanding. And by running slower, you're in turn decreasing the injury risk. So there may be some associated injury risk reduction there as well. So in a nutshell, we don't have any clear evidence, or we don't have a lot of clear evidence at this stage that any one running surface is safer than the other. What we would usually recommend is that if you are changing running surfaces, that you do it gradually, that you don't go from doing all your running on one surface to doing it on another surface, because the overload to the system will happen too quickly and we're not allowing our bodies to adapt. So whenever we're changing surface, just like any sort of activity, make it a graded change. But having said that, having some variety in running surfaces is probably advantageous as well, so that you're exposing your body to different types of stimulus on the tissues, and building different types of sort of robustness there. So I hope that helps answer your question, Tom. Like I said, there is limited research in this space, but there is more and more research going on. So I think in another 5 to 10 years, we'll probably have a better idea of relative injury risk associated with running surface. But at the moment, like we said, if you do plan on making a change to your running surface, just make sure you do that in a graded fashion. So thank you again for your question. Remember, if you do have any questions, please send them in, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.